name's Diane Switzer, and I began with Federation, I think in the early 90s, with women's philanthropy. It was called Women's Division back then, and I started off just canvassing cards and decided to take on leadership and chaired a division of the women's philanthropy, and then I co-chaired with Hildy Barnett, the women's philanthropy. And I think it was in 1991 to somewhere 91, 94. And then got involved in the board of Federation and went on the planning council. And then somewhere in the mid to late 90s was the chair of the planning council with Shelley Rivkin as our staff person. And I did that for a few years, and then my time on the board ended. In 2012, 2013, Mark Gervis and Mitch Groper approached me and said, would you come back on the board? And would you come back on to chair the board? Which was quite huge because I hadn't been on the board. And I thought about it, and I was retiring from work and said, yes, I'd love to do it. And I'd been involved in the nonprofit sector for the last 30 years, so out in the real world, outside the Jewish community. So decided that I could bring something in terms of governance, et cetera, to the board, and chaired the board. So I chaired the board for 2 years, was past chair for 2 years, and now I'm totally retired from Federation and for most of my volunteer work, although I will always take cards.
Busy.
I'm busy. I've got grandchildren. Yeah, very busy. But life is good. And I've always also been involved with the film festival and with JFSA. I chaired their board back in the 80s sometime and really enjoyed that, which was really my introduction to the Jewish community.
So what was it that triggered your initial involvement with Federation? Was there something specific? Or somebody specific?
Not somebody or something, but I had been involved when my kids were in Talmud Torah. I'd been involved in their school. As I said, I was chaired the JFSA board, and I sort of got that having an umbrella or an overarching organization that planned, that looked ahead, and set strategic direction for the community. I saw the difference it could make working in the community organizations. And so I think when that invitation came to get involved in Federation, it was a natural leap from being involved in JFSA and Talmud Torah, because you could actually, you experienced the effect that in a well-organized, overarching umbrella organization, the difference it could make.
Your biggest challenges were then?
I think it was building up the trustworthiness and reputation of Federation. There was a lot of distrust, and people in earlier generations just weren't sure that this was the right way to go. And I think Federation had to prove itself. It had to build a track record and show that it really could bring the community together, could facilitate solving issues and challenges in the community, being a convener and bringing different organizations that were all doing the same thing and bring them together, have discussions, be a leader and a facilitator in the community. And I think it took us many, many years. I wasn't there at the very beginning, but I sensed that there was it took a couple of decades or more to really build up that trust.
Okay, so let's go from challenges to achievements. What are some of the things that you're perhaps proudest of that you've kind of seen over the term of your involvement?
I think what I'm proudest of, and it's not even because it wasn't me, it's a whole team of people and professionals and lay leaders. So what I got the most out of, and what I think was most beneficial for the community, was looking ahead, setting those strategic directions, having everybody rowing in the same direction. So choosing affordability issues, accessibility issues, the regional communities, the spread of our community. I think taking that census data and really being able to use it to decide where our community should go and being very professional about it. And I know there's always some discussion around the push and pull of lay versus professional and the roles of both, but I think that the two groups, the lay leadership and the professional leadership, really work well together as long as we all know where we're going. And I think that latest strategic plan and strategic directions documents have really provided a roadmap as long as we set up the right implementation plans to achieve them.
Community perspective, not necessarily just a federation perspective, what do you think are the biggest challenges facing our community today?
I think aging. And I don't think that our issues are very much different than the issues in the general community. I think we mirror the community. The census has always told us that. And I believe it's true. I think our aging Jewish population is a huge challenge for us. And coupled with that goes affordability and accessibility. We live in an expensive city, we live in an aging city, and that's a deadly combination. How do you house and feed and literally clothe and educate a population whose income isn't going up, the cost of living is going up, and we're getting older? So I think that those challenges are probably one of our biggest. I think our second biggest challenge, I would say we have three. The second challenge for me is the spread. Because of those affordability issues, our community is spreading. And although we still have a core community that lives around the Oak and 41st area, west side of Vancouver, spreading slightly east, but within the city of Vancouver, we still have half our population. When you think that half of us live out in the outlying areas, what are we doing about it? And I think setting up things like the Regional Communities Task Force as an outgrowth of our strategic directions it just demonstrates why we need a federation. And I think the third one for me is connectedness. I see my own adult children and grandchildren, and being Jewish isn't the same for them. They don't feel the same way about Israel. They feel differently. They challenge Israel much more than my generation did. So they look at Israel different. They look at the community differently. They don't want to belong to the organizations that my generation belonged to. And they don't view to be Jewish the same as perhaps my generation did. So how are we going to create a Jewish community that's welcoming for people who don't perhaps value or don't see the value in what we've set up as a community? They see a community differently, and we have to change with that. We have to know they're coming from a different place and understand where they're coming from and meet them where they want to be. I just would like to pay homage to some of the people who were early believers in federation. And one comes specifically to mind, has been a mentor to me, and I admire her greatly, is Helen Coleman. I always admired her from afar when I was getting involved. And you look at her today, she's still here, she still comes to everything she can. People are committed to our community that blow my mind, that they're so committed for decades upon decades, that they believe that the Jewish community is so important that we all hang together, so to speak, and that it's inspirational to me, and I think without those people, we wouldn't have what we have today, and we really need to recognize their contribution. A number of years ago, and you would know this better than I, Al, but we had a tagline for our campaign, and it was no gift touches more lives, or something like that. And I think that if you look at Federation from a campaign perspective, that is an absolutely true statement. You give to Federation, and at least I believe that there's thought there's planning, there's foresight goes into where my dollars go. It just doesn't blindly get given away. There's brilliant lay people that sit and look at applications for funding. We look at our foundation and its thoughtfulness around funding. So I think that it's the annual campaign and the foundation are really important to our community and make a huge difference. The other thing that I think is so important is the planning side of it. And no other organization, everybody's doing really good work. And we looked at it last night at the Food Security Task Force around all the groups. We met with people from Richmond who are doing incredible work, creating community kitchens and lunches for seniors and hot lunches for RJDS students, and really good programs that provide food to people who might not otherwise have such good quality food. But then there's also JFSA, and there's also the rabbis and the synagogues. Federation is the group that can bring all those things together. Where are the gaps? Where are we doing a good job? Where do we need to do things differently? You need somebody who's looking at a whole problem, not just one small segment. And I think Federation does that, and they do it really well. I feel really honored, blessed to be able to have worked with such incredible people. And I don't say that just as a platitude. The people that I've met here in Vancouver, my time on the national board of Federation, both professionals who just are unbelievable, the decades they give to our community. And the lay leaders, I would never have met these really interesting, inspiring people if I hadn't gotten involved in Federation. And so I think Federation opens up your eyes, opens up your life to whole new networks of people. And what I love is all ages. I've gotten to know, I'm of baby boomer generation, and here I sit around board tables and committee tables with 30 and 40-year-olds. And you get to know them, and you really believe that, okay, although we have some challenges around connectedness, we do have leadership coming up. And there are phenomenal younger people that can take our community forward. So I think it's the connections and the networks I've made that I take away from my work at Federation, and I feel best about.